When I travel across this country, I consistently meet two types of people. One, those who are a little better off and tell me that, and I'll be very blunt about this, that if I don't win, they will leave the country. And they are very numerous.
Yes.
Pierre Poilievre just delivered a speech that tore through Parliament like wildfire. Trudeau is missing in action, Chrystia Freeland has resigned, and Canada's economy is in freefall. Poilievre didn't hold back. He laid out the truth about the $62 billion deficit, rising poverty, and a government that's completely out of control. This wasn't politics as usual. This was a wake-up call. And while Trudeau hides behind closed doors, Poilievre stood up, calling for real solutions to the crisis millions of Canadians are living through right now. But before we dive into the brutal truths Poilievre delivered, we need your take. Do you think Trudeau's leadership is over? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and hit that subscribe button because the truth deserves to be heard loud and clear. Now let's break down this speech that has all of Canada talking. The speech that shook Parliament. Pierre Poilievre took the floor in Parliament, and it wasn't just to talk. It was to deliver a full-scale takedown of Trudeau's government. At the center of his fiery speech, the shocking revelation of Canada's $62 billion deficit, a number that is unprecedented in modern Canadian history, especially during a time of economic growth. Poilievre called out the failed promises of the outgoing finance minister, Chrystia Freeland, who had set a self-imposed guardrail of $40 billion. But Trudeau and what Poilievre mockingly referred to as carbon tax carney grabbed the wheel and drove the budget right off a cliff. In Poilievre's words, Freeland wasn't just thrown under the bus. She was blamed for the crash, while Trudeau and his backroom allies walked away unscathed. Poilievre wasn't done. He painted a grim picture of the human cost of Trudeau's economic mismanagement. 1,400 homeless encampments in Ontario, 35 homeless camps in Halifax alone, 2 million Canadians depending on food banks, the resurgence of diseases like scurvy due to food insecurity, 1 in 4 children going to school hungry every day. But it's not just about numbers. Poilievre shared stories of everyday Canadians who are being crushed under Trudeau's policies. He recounted meeting a waitress who works 1 full-time job and 2 part-time jobs just to pay her bills. She's cut every comfort out of her life but still can't get ahead. When her car was stolen, insurance wouldn't cover the loss, and she had to pick up another job just to make ends meet. For Poilievre, this isn't just an economic crisis, it's also a moral one. His message was clear. Trudeau's government has failed not only in managing the economy, but in protecting the very people it was elected to serve. And where is Trudeau? Silent. Poilievre called out his absence, pointing to the chaos Freeland's resignation has left behind. No finance minister, no leadership, no plan. Poilievre's speech hit like a hammer, resonating with millions of Canadians who feel left behind by a government that seems more focused on optics than solutions.
Just to underline the chaos we're faced with here, the finance minister resigned the day she was to present the fall budget, which was going to contain a massive deficit overrun. The job then went automatically to the industry minister, who immediately resigned, like on the spot.
Poilievre exposes Canada's economic collapse. Pierre Poilievre didn't stop with the deficit. He went deeper, exposing the systemic failures that have led to Canada's current economic collapse. One of his most striking points was the growing economic gap between Canada and the United States. A decade ago, the GDP per capita of the two countries was almost equal. Today, the gap has ballooned to $30,000 per person. According to Poilievre, this is proof of Trudeau's failed economic policies. Canadian workers are receiving only 55 cents of investment for every dollar their American counterparts get, leaving businesses underfunded and jobs scarce. And where is Canada's money going? South of the border. Nearly $500 billion, almost a quarter of Canada's economy, has fled to the United States. That money is building pipelines, factories, and job opportunities for American workers while Canadians are left struggling. Poilievre painted a stark contrast. In the US, Businesses are thriving, wages are rising, and investment is booming. In Canada, unemployment is climbing, wages are stagnant, and 2 million people rely on food banks to survive. The speech brought attention to the fact that millions of Canadians are now being forced to make impossible choices. Do they pay the rent or buy groceries? Do they heat their homes or fill their gas tanks? Adding to the chaos, Poilievre pointed to Trudeau's inability to address the looming U.S. trade crisis. With incoming President Donald Trump threatening 25% tariffs on Canadian goods, Poilievre demanded a coherent plan to protect Canadian businesses and workers. But with Freeland gone and Trudeau AWOL, the government seems completely unprepared for the economic storm ahead. Canada needs leadership, he argued, and Trudeau's government has proven it isn't capable of delivering it.
Behind closed doors, the Prime Minister tried to calm the chaos triggered by his Finance Minister's bombshell resignation. Justin Trudeau says he'll consider his next move over the holidays, not soon enough for some.
The Prime Minister is living in a false reality.
Trudeau's absence and Liberal disarray. While Pierre Poilievre delivered his scathing speech, the most glaring absence was that of Justin Trudeau. The Prime Minister, whose leadership is supposed to steady the country in times of crisis, was nowhere to be found. With Chrystia Freeland's resignation leaving a gaping hole in his cabinet, Trudeau's silence only amplified the sense of chaos surrounding his government. Poilievre called out Trudeau directly, mocking his inability to face Parliament and address the escalating crises. His scorn was palpable. While Canadians suffer and Parliament implodes, Trudeau is hiding behind closed doors, letting the mess pile up. Freeland's departure has thrown the Liberal government into complete disarray. Her resignation wasn't just a loss of a finance minister, it signaled a collapse of confidence within Trudeau's inner circle. Sean Fraser, another key minister, also resigned, and rumors are swirling that more defections may be on the horizon. Poilievre capitalized on the chaos, describing the Liberals as a rudderless ship. He hammered home the point that Trudeau's leadership has failed to inspire confidence within his own ranks, let alone the country. Even Liberal backbenchers have begun to voice dissent, with some publicly calling for Trudeau to step aside. To make matters worse, Canada is facing a looming trade crisis with the US, and Freeland's absence is already being felt. Having played a pivotal role in negotiating the original NAFTA deal, she was expected to lead Canada's strategy against Trump's 25% tariff threat. Without her, Poilievre questioned whether Trudeau's government could effectively navigate the challenges ahead. The message was clear. Trudeau's absence and Freeland's resignation have left Canada without leadership during one of its most critical moments. Poilievre's vision for Canada's future. Despite the fiery critique, Poilievre's speech laid out a vision for a stronger, more prosperous Canada, one built on accountability, lower taxes, and economic opportunity for all. At the heart of his message was the promise to bring back the promise of Canada. Poilievre called for a government that prioritizes Canadian families and workers over political gimmicks and flashy headlines. He emphasized the need to attract investment back to Canada by creating a stable, business-friendly environment, lower taxes on middle and working-class Canadians to ease the burden of rising costs, focus on essential infrastructure and energy projects that create jobs and strengthen the economy. He ended his speech by contrasting Trudeau's failures with his own vision of hope. While Trudeau's government continues to crumble under its own weight, Poilievre promised to restore Canada's reputation as a land of opportunity and fairness. His emotional appeal was clear. Millions of Canadians are struggling, and they need leadership that works for them, not against them. Poilievre declared, "We must fight for the people who can't leave, who are losing faith in the promise of our country, and we must bring it home." The question now is whether this speech will mark the beginning of the end for Trudeau's government or simply be another chapter in Canada's growing discontent. One thing is certain, Canadians are watching, and Poilievre's challenge has set the stage for a political reckoning. If you believe it's time for real change in Canada, hit subscribe and stay with us as we continue to bring you the truth. This story is far from over, and we'll be here to keep you informed every step of the way.
Canada makes everyone a promise. It's a very simple deal. You work hard, you get decent food, and a good home in a safe neighborhood. Doesn't matter where you come from, you work hard, that's what you get. But that promise, like everything else, is broken after 9 years of this NDP Liberal Prime Minister. He's doubled housing costs. That's why I came forward with a now widely celebrated idea to axe the GST sales tax on new homes, saving up to $50,000 on the cost of a new home. Will he accept my common sense plan to axe the tax and build the homes?